We've had deep dives into the past and everything that came out before the release of Space Marine 2, but now we're going to be looking into the future. Whether you're firing a bolt rifle or admiring your new glorious pauldrons with some of the extra additions coming in, there's a couple of enemies and expansions. There's so much to look forward to. This is year one of the battle plan for Space Marine 2, and there's so much to unpack, so let's grab our bolters and dive right in. First up, let's talk launch. September is when it all began, and for those of you that pre-ordered, you're in for a treat. You get some DLCs and extra little bits and pieces, with exclusive appearances on your chainsword bolt rifle and of course the pauldrons as well. Yes, you do have to complete a few missions in order to unlock some extra stuff, but there are some cosmetics for you. Now, my personal opinion on cosmetics is, well, a little bit in between. I don't particularly mind having content locked behind a pre-order, as long as it doesn't really affect the game, and at least if there's enough cosmetic content within the title itself. And I do think that Space Marine 2 manages to pass that threshold. Being able to completely change the chapter of your Space Marine by adding a little extra bits and decals is gorgeous and a really nice touch for actually investing within the story. Being able to play over these operations time and time again, maybe playing as a different chapter, and of course one of the many classes within it, and role-playing throughout. So the fact that there's a few extra bits behind the DLC is not the end of the world for me. Obviously, it's not preferable, especially since this game is pretty expensive already, but because of the amount of content, I think it kind of evens it out somewhat. But that's not all. If you picked up the gold or ultra editions, you're in for even more treats. You'll get access to a season pass. I know that does make me feel a little bit sick inside, but it does include some cosmetics inspired by some of the most iconic Space Marine chapters. Plus, for the ultra edition folks, you get the Ultramarines Champion Pack, which looks absolutely gorgeous, with a full heavy armor set, complete with a unique bolter, or heavy bolter should I say, exclusively for you. Now, once again, more locked away content. I have to say though, this looks genuinely incredible. I love the design that's been put on all of them, especially stuff like the bulwark and seeing the guy with the shield and the winged helms, and of course within the missions and on the battle barge. I cannot get over the really intensely lore accurate designs that, well, Saber Interactive have actually managed to put within the game. And even though, me personally, I would probably never say pre-order a game, even something like Space Marine 2, where it's a pretty safe bet, I'm glad there is a little bit more content. But the reason that I'm not too miffed about this is because there is a lot of content coming for everybody within the game. I could sit here and moan all day about cosmetics locked behind extra money, but the fact is, we are going to get some free stuff if you've already bought the game. After launch, this is where things start to get exciting. In the first few weeks, the developers are going to be rolling out a lot of patches based on community feedback, and we've already started to see that as well, especially on the multiplayer side. If you've been playing on console, there's been a lot of patches to try and help the console ports of that game because, well, multiplayer is hell even in the best of times, and especially on different styles of consoles as well. We're talking ultra-wide support coming in as well, and private player versus environment lobbies, and get this, a new battle barge sparring arena for those who want a little bit of extra practice before going into the thick of campaign. This does mean that if you are playing co-op with your mates before you go into one of the operations or the campaigns, you can test out some of your new weapons that you've unlocked, and of course your dodging and sliding, your shooting, and of course some of the heavy attacks and the abilities that you have. It's just a small little extra that will be coming into the game, but I think it's kind of a cool addition. What it will end up being is probably like, do you know the queue lobbies on PUBG where everybody is just abusing each other before the game actually starts? That's pretty much what they're trying to indicate by calling it a battle barge sparring arena. Sure, it has a cool name, but really it's just a way to bully your mates that don't know how to fight properly. Then things really start to heat up when Season 2 comes along, coming between October and the end of the year, which really isn't that far. I thought all the stuff, and you're about to hear some really great content that's coming in, would be way later down the line, perhaps in 2025, but we're actually getting a brand new enemy before the end of 2024, which is incredible news. Now, there's very little information on what this could be. However, we've had the Tyranids, and of course, we've got the Thousand Suns and Chaos, with the demons and the Chaos, the Tzeentch demons within this as well. I think it's probably going to be completely separate because there are going to be a couple of extra missions that come with it. Well, with the PvE missions. Probably going to be in the form of operations. I expect most of the campaign is finished now. Whether they'll add stuff in later in expansions, I don't know, but I think a lot of the missions, and we'll see a few more announced down the road, are going to be operations. So when you hear PvE missions, I would assume for now, unless we're told otherwise, that they're going to be more operations. So a new enemy, whether we're going to get the Eldar, which I think would be absolutely incredible because you haven't seen it there, or, which is probably the more likely, we could very much be getting the Necrons. Now, why do I think that's more likely? Well, towards the end of Space Marine 2, when you're in the warp, you can see some Necron technology as well, which means that that could be something they delve into. And actually, the Necrons just really haven't been explored too much while in games like this, which would be absolutely incredible. And I'd love to see them finally delve into it, because it's kind of a race that, well, nobody's really delved into in any sort of media other than a cool few trailers and cinematic things for games as well. In 2025 and Season 3, of course, we've got PvE missions, PvP modes, and arenas, and of course, more and more enemies. Very exciting. Then by Season 4, it's time for the big stuff. Horde mode will be coming in. Endless waves of enemies, new weapons to master, and more foes to crush underfoot. Which, I mean, this is an exciting aspect because it means that we'll have some sort of PvE mode which lets us show off our new Dark Angel armor, our new pistols, the Neo Volkite pistols that's coming in as well, and all the new cosmetics and ranks and all the weapons that we get to play around with endless Horde modes. And of course, this being co-op will make it incredibly fun. I'd expect it to be something like a World War Z, but without just going through certain missions, picking one sort of area, one map, probably taken from the already established missions, and then being able to play through that, making sure that you have these certain points that you have to defend as different waves of enemies, starting off pretty small and getting bigger and bigger. I'd love to see some bosses coming in as well. Maybe even the Chaos can start to come in at some point. Plus, there'll be some fresh chapter cosmetics, including a champion pack, cosmetic pack, and weapon skins for another to be announced chapter later on down the line. And let's be real, whatever it's going to be, is going to look just as epic as all the other ones. But I wanted to take a moment to reflect on how the game has fared so far and where we hope to see it going. We've had a lot of excitement around launch, and let's be honest, there are always things that can be improved or expanded. Personally, I absolutely adore the campaign. I think it is exactly where it needs to be. In terms of storytelling, there's enough there to get you grips with, and of course, it doesn't do anything too impressively complicated, but anybody that's jumping into the Warhammer lore knows how terrifying it is when you first start, and having a good sort of few characters that you can get to know, such as the captain, and of course, you've got Titus and Chiron and Gadriel. It's actually a perfect way of introducing you to this world, and it is great for bringing you into more of the lore. There's little Easter eggs for people that do understand the world, like the Cadians that have been infected by the warp don't have purple eyes, as the Cadians that are, well, still on your side do have purple eyes. Some really cool aspects like that. We see things like dead rhino tanks by the side from the old ages of your Space Marines before they become the Primus guys, and well, it's really, really well done. And the amount of love and attention to detail that's put into this game is something incredibly, incredibly special. But I do think the community would appreciate some deeper integrations, perhaps in the multiplayer. I think this definitely needs some expanding. I think it's still pretty bare bones. Now, as I've been through in this video, we do have some multiplayer coming in so far. But as Space Marine 2 goes at this point in time, is sitting at around a 60,000 concurrent player peak, which is still absolutely crazy. And of course, reaching its peak of almost 250,000 concurrent players on Steam. And to put that into perspective, that was in the top 10 most played games on Steam, and this is just one platform. It's also out on consoles as well. It's an incredibly, incredibly successful title, and one that I hoped would be the size it is, but you never know, since Warhammer is so huge, but it sometimes fails to reach the mainstream with the types of games. But what I do hope this has done is shown Games Workshop that these are the types of Warhammer games we want. Look, I love Slytherin, and I love really nerdy RTS strategy games, and of course, turn-based strategy games, but there is too many of Warhammer games that go down this route. There are so many Warhammer 40k games that have to be turn-based strategy, or I've had enough of it. There's plenty there. We've done that now. I don't want to see any more Space Marines and Orcs fighting across hexagons. I'd like to see more stuff like this, because these are the types of games that can hit the mainstream, that actually immerse you in the world, and actually can really delve into the lore, because they can tell fantastic stories, and there's only so attached you can get to a character when it is, well, just a guy based on a hex that can move 3 squares this round.
I'm going to be honest, they're not my type of games, but there seem to be every Warhammer game is going down that direction at this point in time. So I'm so glad that Space Marine 2 has shown that this is the type of game that really sell. This is the type of game that Warhammer fans are really looking forward to. Big, fun, blasting action, and I hope we get more like this. There's a lot coming in the future, and I'll keep you updated, so make sure you stick around the channel if you haven't subscribed already. But until then, I will see you in the next one.